All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to the last session of the first day of reInvent. That was one of these sentences that I thought I would never make, but here we are. It's good to see you all. I'm Sali. I'm a senior developer advocate with AWS, and I have Matt alongside me.
Hey, I'm Matt. I'm a senior principal engineer. I work in AWS developer tools. You can think of things like CloudFormation, the Code Suite, little CDK. Excited to show you guys a bunch of stuff we've been doing with that lately.
So today, yes, we have slides, but this is the only slide that we have. Since this is a code talk, we wanted to create something from scratch for you. And what we're going to build is we are going to build a full stack application from scratch. First, we will build the front end. Then we will do the deployment, add some features, these generative AI features alongside it. We will talk about best practices, what we have released recently to help you out to build this stuff. And most importantly, of course, later on, we will share some resources for you to try out as well. And today's app idea actually came from a need of mine. So that's why you will be seeing we're building something to solve a problem of mine. I play a lot of games, and one thing that I was missing was a platform to exchange games or sell games or see what my friends played. I love Goodreads, for example. I can see what they're doing besides selling books, but at least it's doing a lot of things. I wanted to have a version of that for games for me. And I wanted to build it from scratch. And I was like, I built something and I liked it. Then we were discussing, and we will build it today together as well. So I guess I will sit. So all right. So we will be relying a lot on agents today. And how many of you have heard of Kiro? Nice. So Kiro is the agentic IDE that is allowing you to build your applications through not only vibe coding, but also spectrum development as well. And we will be using Kiro today to build our application. And we will start from very basic to build our application, then do every connection that is needed. So first of all, what we are going to do, I will show you a few things, but before I move forward, I want to ask you, can everyone in the back can see it? Or if not, all right, perfect. So we are not people who are believing in agents or AI that is going to build everything and we will just commit it blindly. We will explain the code. And of course, we know it's not going to be perfect. But the important point is we want to showcase the thought process of how to start and move forward with everything that we have. All right, without further ado, first thing that we are going to do is to actually create a front-end project. For the front-end project, I decided to go with React and Vite. I love React so much. And Vite is, I think, making my developer experience better. For the folks who are not front-end developers, Vite is a developer tool that is allowing you to build front-end applications in a more efficient or effective way. It gives you proper test suites and so on, so you can have a proper way of building stuff. In this prompt that I have here, I just talk about creating a React application. But we know there's a problem with large language models. They have cutoff dates. And cutoff dates are making them open for not having the latest version of the libraries and so on, right? So what we are going to have here is we will show how we can add additional context. First thing that you can do is to actually add documentation. Many agentic IDs have documentation alongside it, so you can just search for, in this case, React here, and this will bring in the context of React documentation. This React documentation is not the full documentation website that you might imagine. No, it's actually a separate markdown file that is bringing code snippets and enough information to build information. And alongside, I give information about like Tailwind, for example, to build the CSS properly, because classic CSS, we know it's not very nice to go with. And I'm going to use Shadcn UI to be able to have the UI components as well. But if I go to my docs here, and write Shad, see, and you can see that I have no result because I don't have every doc that is available on the planet Earth. For this purpose, we are going to use MCP servers. How many of you have heard of MCPs before? Okay, more hands. So MCP is the Model Context Protocol. This is basically like a system that is allowing you to plug in additional information to the large language models so they can understand more of the context that you want to tell them. And since they know more about it, they will act accordingly as well. I will use one of the most famous ones, which is called Context 7. Context 7 has both open source and third-party and official documentation alongside it. And for that to pick up, I'm just going to say, for shard CN, use Context 7. And after I do this, we will start the process. First thing that the chat is going to do is to actually call the Context 7. It will get first the library ID. It will get the most highly rated one. It will get the information about the UI part, because shard has more of what you can think of, what you can guess as well. And meanwhile it does that, it gets every information that is available through the React and how to build it as well. Once we move forward, it says, okay, now I have enough information, I will create it. Now it's just a process of accepting everything, and it will add the libraries to create the basic project. The command that we have here is not magic. When we didn't have AI in our lives, this is how we were creating the Vite project as well. It was not magic that we were doing before. So it actually created the project directly. You can see that this is the most beautiful app in the world. It's a counter app with React. So we are in a good place. We already started with the first task down. The second task was adding the CSS and so on. To add this stuff, it will go through the documentation that we have either in the IDE or bring in whatever we need. And it will go iteratively, because in the prompt here, I said, do in the step-by-step that I have provided over here. In the meantime, this does that. I want to take you through a little bit of a journey of how crazy things has changed in the last few years. Like, I want to ask you, how many of you are using agentic IDs like Cloud Code, Cursor, Kiro? Yes. So like we have a few folks that are not using, either they don't like it or like company policies and so on and so forth. But 2 years ago, I remember seeing some folks adding a comment on an empty file and saying that create a 2+2 function for me in Java, and immediately it was like filling it out with every information, a simple function. I was thinking, wow, like that's crazy. That's going to change everything. Then like time moved forward into like last year, more or less 2024. I'm sure many of you have heard or done that. Like we went to the chat places like ChatGPT or Claude and asked like, I want to build this platform, and can you just do this thing? And we were copying and pasting or downloading whatever file that it was creating, and we were saying, wow, that's even better. And now we are living in the age of agents, which is basically changing everything. And that is what we are going to do today. Like these are like one thing that we want to emphasize is everything that we do, we have to understand why and how we do it. Because agents are as smart as you tell them to be. If I just sit down here and say that build me a game platform, that will probably build the most ugliest and most like, unstructured app that you will ever see. But if you tell more and more information, if you give more and more information, it will be understanding what you mean for them to move forward as well. So like we are moving forward and other stuff. I want to talk to you about two things that is very valuable from the Kiro perspective. One is every time that it iterates through something, you can see that it checks out these string files. String files are your rule files that is allowing the agent to know what borders that you have for your application. For these rules, you can define either structure or tech perspective. For example, in here, what I said was for a React project, always make sure that you have npm run build run in place. And the second thing that I do is for a TypeScript project, never use any. Because in case you're a beginner with TypeScript, any is your enemy. Just saying, don't use it. So this allows me to actually move forward faster because it gives me a sanity check that everything will be all right. So now we have created every step that we wanted to create. The next thing that we will do is to create data perspective. In the meantime, it creates the data. I will also take you through the files that we have created so far. So what I have here is, I say, create TypeScript interfaces with user, game, listing, everything that I might be needing to create this game information. And I want to have a chat. I want to have an AI chat in addition to this as well. And every information is right now supposed to be mocked because to turn it into full stack, we will do it in the next stage. So if I go back to my application, you can see that I created something that I call my app here. And in my app, when you create an application, it will already create the structure for you, so you do not have any additional information here. One thing that we do here is, one thing that we do have to know here is like, the app.tsx file is our starting point. Everything that is happening, or let me take this away. Yes, it works in the meantime. It allows you to define your theming, define your navigation, define any information that needs to be dropped in from top to bottom. The provider perspective of React is allowing you to think of a component tree from top to bottom. In case you want to send a message, this is how you do it. So from the theme, if you want to send a message to the route or like browser router or any UI element like home, you have to wrap it with the theme provider alongside as well. So from the Pages perspective, Pages is an API that is allowing you to create a navigation flow with the name of the files. So if I go to home here, I have some information about submitting the counter because we had the counter file that we have created, right? And it just moves forward and changes everything in the meantime. I want to put a pause. As you see, thanks to the npm run build, now I found an error that was normally supposed to be, for example, get accepted. But now I can go through it and it automatically fixes that. You might be wondering why it is making that error in the beginning anyway, because it just goes through it. It doesn't see the before, the moment that it's in, it just has the information that we provided. As we move forward, it is not aware of thinking of what is going to happen next. It just does with the things that it knows. So that is why you have to know what you're doing needs to work out properly. Anyway, so what we have done here is we have changed the UI a bit. What we have done was basically we have created a toggle to have the light and dark mode. We have added some email information to register. This is super arbitrary. We will make it better with the authentication flow. But what it did was it created a flow of UI to accompany the data that we have. Now we will go to the data, but before we go, let's create the layout components. The layout components that I have here is just basic components that you would have, for example, like header, footer, some information about being responsive, like if it's smaller, show a burger menu, and so on and so forth. And with the styling and so on, we have the gradient perspective as well. For the mock data, I have some important points that I want to share. So it created everything, but we have to understand that this is our contract. When we want to build a database out of the information that is provided here, the agent will come here and actually build the database from it because we will tell it to do so, but at the same time, it will see this as the source of truth. It will go through everything and get the necessary information. And if I go back here, you can see that even the mock data is arranged in the way that when this information is seeded into the database, it is going to be there for us to use. And now you can see that we, for example, have user data. We have, for example, game data. Since we don't have a game MCP, it is using some games from 2023. Legend of Zelda was amazing, but for example, God of War Ragnarok or Halo Infinite and so on and so forth as well. So if you had MCP, for example, for the folks who doesn't know MCP, we would have, for example, Arc Raiders, which is the hot game of the year right now. All right, so we have the mock data in place, and we have added the layout components. Now I wanted to create a login page, again, accompanying what I have created with the mock data. As you see, I mentioned the page where it's supposed to go. Why do I do it? Because I want to make sure that this is part of my authentication flow. The second part is I will use my imagination to describe what I have in mind so it can add that information, like center the card layout, showcase this, have a different color on the button so it knows what the sign up button does and so on. As you go like more complex, as you go more deeper and deeper, you would realize that just create an authentication page will not do whatever you need. So it goes and reads through everything, and it says, like, now I have a good understanding of the project, and it is creating everything in the meantime. After we create the auth page, we will have the AI chat because we promised you an AI chat, real-time AI mechanism alongside as well. And last but not least, later on, we will do the styling. With everything in place, you can see that each operation or each iteration of the pages, it takes roughly around 2 or 3 minutes. I counted more or less, so I'm relatively sure about the, like besides the first one took around like 3 minutes to set up everything, and everything else took less. For these purposes, we were actually using templates before. But the problem with templates were they were going out of date easily. So we need to have someone working on the templates to keep everything in place. And like in the meantime, for an intern project or so, we were dedicating someone to build this, plus bringing everything and hoping that everything would work. But right now, thanks to, for example, steering files, you can define your company rules, and you can define everything that is going to work with this project as well. An agent can bring this into life so you can see where you can start off or like move forward as well. All right, so we can see that the authentication page is created. Now we will add the AI assistant page. AI assistant page is going to look like everything that you have seen so far. It's going to have a chat window. It will have some additional suggestions so you can take it out. And once you have everything in place, it will give you an answer. Right now, it will give you a mock answer. The mock answer will have a delay of 300 milliseconds to make you feel like, yes, everything is real data, but it's not. The real data will come on later. With the AI stuff moving forward, of course, MCP is not the only way to expand what we need. In case you want to add additional context, or in case you want to make them smarter, you can also connect your databases, you can also connect your processes as well. This will allow you to make them smarter. So right now, probably if you're working for a company, you are getting asked, like, how can we add AI to this? How can we have, like, make this smarter or make this move forward as well? So these are the ways to do it. Like, you can add a large language model, but that's not enough nowadays. You have to make it more specified and more smarter as well. All right, so right now this committed everything. The AI assistant page is done. Last thing that we are going to do is to change some stuff around the styling. In the meantime, I want to showcase the AI assistant page. In the AI assistant page, you can see that we have hard-coded suggestions, so it's totally up to you to define what you want to do here. Also, we are using different states of React to be able to say that, hey, we are waiting for a response, we get the response, and we are acting on it. There are 2 ways to act on the AI chat mechanisms. One of them is you send a prompt and you wait and you get the chunk of data and show it immediately. And the other one is called streaming approach. You can just get it one word by word. My brain is slowly leaving my words as well. You will get word by word, bring everything together, and showcase it directly. But in here, we are just sending and receiving the information as well. So with everything in place, now we have changed the UIs, we have changed the CSS files. Everybody, including myself, we always complain about CSS, how we forget it, how to do it, and so on. This way, you can bring in the colors, the structure, and everything that you need to showcase what you have envisioned. In case you don't want to do this, you can also drag and drop your color scheme directly here, and it will create the prompt out of it as well. For us, the important point is, like, I want to emphasize this one more time. We are not here to just say, style this or change this or something, or we are not here to say that make this modern. No. We are here to bring our brand. We are here to bring our knowledge. We are here to bring of how we have envisioned it to go around. I love seeing cards. Maybe it's because, like, when I saw them for the first time, when the material design was out, I fell in love with them. And I like using them. And everything that I explained here, not only with authentication and so on, for UI perspective, is coming from what I have envisioned earlier on. So everything is in place. Let's see how it looks like. So right now we have this. Okay, so more or less we have like the game up with the username password. We have the sign up page, and I can just add my username and the password as well. And once I add that, you can see that it takes me to the AI assistant page. But we have also like home, marketplace, sales, chat, and so on that I have told you about earlier on. And if I do this thing, you can see the 300 milliseconds, and it just gets some information back to me. So now everything in place, I will slowly hand over to Matt so we can take this fun into another level. So, Matt.
All right, thanks. How many people were surprised that that worked? No, actually, a couple over there. I'm actually not actually. There's actually something really interesting that he did, which I think is a best practice that everyone should be following. I don't know how many of you have been, well, I guess maybe roughly half of the people have been using AI-based IDEs. One interesting thing he did, if you all noticed, is he broke up his prompts into very small things. Right? He said, first I'm going to create an app, and then I'm going to add mock data, and then I'm going to add AI, I think, and I forget what all of them were, but he did them one by one. And I think the smaller you break these things up into little pieces, the more likely the AI is going to understand what you're doing and actually go and execute on it. I'm going to do the opposite. So this is going to be a little bit of vibe presenting, I guess. So what I'm going to do, we talked about MCP servers. How many people here have actually built an MCP server themselves? Couple of them. Okay. So I have one myself. I'm going to enable it over here. You can see in Kiro over on the left-hand side here, there's this little ghost icon, and down here you've got all the MCP servers. I think you had the Context 7 one installed. We're going to install mine here, and what this is going to do, there's an MCP server I built with some functionality I've been using. I've been taking a lot of applications and trying to deploy them onto AWS with best practices. And the experience that I'm trying to enable for my own internal use is that I come here into this, and I just type deploy my app. And what do you guys think? Is it going to work? So you can see it's reading the steering files we talked about. It says it's going to help deploy it. It called my tool, and you can see that it gets a script name called Run Deployment Assistant. So this returned this whole big prompt. This is a prompt that's being returned by the MCP server. And we're not going to go into all the details of it, but what I'm doing here is you can see that we've asked it. Waiting for my input. What's it doing? Okay. So I'm going to be running a much longer workflow here. And so I don't have the ability to break this up into small steps where I ask the model to do one thing and then another thing and then another thing. I'm actually asking it to follow a much more complicated workflow. And so to do this, I've asked the model to actually maintain a checklist of all the steps. And I'm asking it to create this checklist, and then as it goes through, actually walk through them one by one and check them off itself. And this is something I've been using. It helps the models be more reliable in executing these steps. And the steps that I'm actually asking it to do in this case are actually follow a bunch of best practices to deploy.
It is stuck, so you can
stuck again? Where?
You can just quit this one.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's always a problem in these demos. Okay. So I'm trying to deploy his application out to AWS following a bunch of best practices. And I'm going to walk through a couple of them. For me, there's sort of, again, my goal here is not just to deploy it, but deploy it in such a way that I can continue to use agents to evolve my infrastructure as I go along. And so there's a couple of best practices I think are really important. One of them, you can see here I have a first step, or step 3, I guess, called make the code base agent friendly. And this gets back to a lot of what Sully was talking about with like steering files and stuff like that. So if I scroll down here, I'll walk you through a little bit of what I've done. You can see that we have, okay, well, you can see here it's checking off all the steps as it goes along. But if we come down to this part, I'm actually asking to create this file called agents.md. A lot of agent-based IDEs and such look at this file and automatically start including it. And you can see I've got a bunch of things that I ask it to do here. For example, look at the directory docs.design.component.md. This lets me actually check in documentation into my code base and have the agent look at that and keep it up to date as it works on it. It helps the model have a lot of extra context on why we're building what we're building. I have some things here, some guidance on how I want it to actually do git commit messages. I have, I'm also including a bunch of skills, and these are things that we can ask the model to go and learn how to do things like, I'll show you an example here, is logging. So the logging.md file is a specific skill that explains to it all of the logs are now going to be in CloudWatch. Go there to find logs. And so as I build things and the agent runs into errors, Sally showed an example of an error earlier. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but there was an error, and the model self-diagnosed it. In this case, if I'm actually deploying infrastructure, the model may or may not know how to actually go and diagnose that. And so by including this skill here and telling it, go look in CloudWatch. Here, I give some example commands about how to actually look for logs in CloudWatch. And by doing this, when we later get to a point and we start deploying this, this application, it can self-diagnose things. And I'm actually hoping the demo fails and there's errors, so it actually diagnoses, and I'll show you that, but we'll see. It's waiting for input again, hold on. Okay. Okay, so that's the guidance to agents. The second best practice, as you saw here, was generating CDK. How many people here use infrastructure as code? About half of you guys? How many are using the CDK? All right, how many are using Terraform? Okay. How many are using CloudFormation directly? A couple as well, okay. I'm a big fan of the CDK, but in any case, I think one of the really important things for models is that you use infrastructure as code when you're building and deploying on AWS. If you don't use infrastructure as code, and there's tons of examples where you can go and ask the agent to do things like add an S3 bucket or, sorry, I keep having to unblock this guy. So you can ask the agent to go and add an S3 bucket or add a database, and it's probably going to go and use the AWS CLI or something to start making calls, and that's great. But once it's made the call, when you ask it to do something else, it's not going to know that that resource was there. And so if you ask it to continue to evolve your infrastructure, you actually want the agent to be able to know what's already out there. And if it needs to go call like all different kinds of AWS APIs to explore what's in your account, it's going to take forever. But by using infrastructure as code, whether that's Terraform, which it sounds like a lot of you guys are using, or CDK, which we're using here, you give that context directly into your code base, and the agent can actually understand these are the resources I have. There's also tons of documentation online that the model understands, which are going to help it sort of design that correctly. You can run things like CDK linters and things like that to actually verify that the CDK code or the infrastructure's code that you're building is correct. So you can see here we are, I'm not sure where we're at in this process. Yeah, here we're generating things like infra.ts. So this, for example, is our main entry point. You can see that we're creating a front-end stack here. We're adding tags to it, which are going to help us. They'll go back and find this application and organize it. Let's see, where? Yeah, you can see here, for example, this is a good example. This is the front-end stack, and you can see that we have an S3 bucket. We're creating, this is the S3 bucket, which is actually going to have the contents of our front-end application. Here's a CloudFront e-distribution, which we're going to use to get better page load times, and so on and so forth. Here we're adding a resource policy, so here we can actually put all the IAM permissions and stuff like that directly into here, and then the agent knows everything that you have already. Let's see, where are we getting? So we are at the point where we are going to deploy this. Let's see. Okay, we're deploying, and this is going to take a couple minutes. So you finish doing. The last best practice I want to talk to you about. So this here, this is actually doing a ready to deploy. Okay, it's actually asking me, so I'm going to tell it yes, go ahead and deploy. And while we wait for that to happen, so this deployment is just doing a CDK deploy. And so this is deploying what I'm calling in the context of my application here. This is doing a CDK deployment. Actually, as you can see, it's using a script that I've made here. And let me actually show you this script real quick. Where was it? It was in scripts deploy.sh. So what you can see here is this is actually this is a script that my big long prompt actually asked the agent to go and create. And what's interesting about this is it's going to come in here and it's going to do a bunch of, it's basically just providing the command to do a CDK deploy. But the reason I've decided to model this one in a script is this is this is an action I'm going to ask it to do again and again and again, and I want it to be deterministic. Anytime you ask an agent to do something, there's some level of non-determinism in there, but my deployment, I don't think I need that. And so I actually asked it to generate a script. If we went back and looked at the original prompt I had, I think I actually include a snippet in there, and so it just sort of pasted the script directly into my code base. And this lets me have a lot of control over how I'm doing the deployment. For example, you can see here that that there's a check that if I'm doing a preview deployment, which is what we're doing now, I enable a flag called hot swap fallback. How many have you guys used that hot swap fallback with CDK deployments? So one thing that CDK or CloudFormation really provides for you is as it deploys, it ensures correctness. So you deploy something, it verifies, has this actually completed? Is it consistent? Or do you know that if you've created a resource, you can query it and it's already there? Sometimes you don't care about that. If you're doing your local development, you probably want a faster iteration loop where you can just get deployments out there and just check, are things working, are things working? You want that really tight loop. That's something you probably don't want in production because you want the guarantees that the infrastructure is created or deleted or updated as appropriate. So here I've actually, you put in here, if I'm doing my local development, I want you to use the hot swappy fallback feature, which is going to just go and update Lambda or S3 directly and not worry about the full CloudFormation deployment. But in production, I don't want that. And so by putting this in a script, I've removed some level of non-determinism where the agent might do something that I don't want. So, right. The other thing I was going to call out is that here we are doing a local preview, right? So I'm just doing a CDK deployment directly. This is really intended for my local development. Later, I eventually want this to go into a pipeline. We're not going to walk through that in this demo so much, but I think that pipelines are super important. This idea of a continuous integration, continuous deployment development cycle. I'm going to be using, if we'd gotten all the way in there, we'd be using no code pipeline. One of the things that I think is really important with developing with agents is that eventually these agents are going to do things that you don't expect. Right, and they might have generated code that you didn't want, and maybe you looked at. I mean, how many of you have had that where you've had an agent, you build something, and you didn't look at every line of the code? You guys ever done that? Okay, a lot of people have done that, right? So I believe pretty strongly in looking at every line of the code, but occasionally we don't do that. Occasionally we get lazy. Occasionally we have teammates that might not have done that. Occasionally you looked and you didn't realize there was a mistake that the agent made. This is going to happen, and I think this is going to become increasingly important in our software development lifecycle because we're going to have unsupervised code that goes out there, and you want checks. You want checks that make sure there aren't bugs that reach your customers. You want checks to make sure there's not security vulnerabilities that get out. You want checks to make sure your costs aren't getting out of control. And so by putting that in a CI/CD pipeline, you can make sure that there are checks there that act as a safety net. We should still do our due diligence and review all the code, but just in case, you want those checks out there. So that would be the last best practice that's coded into this, if we were getting there. We're still doing this deployment, and I've run out of material for this part of it. So maybe while we wait, are there any questions that people have? We got one over here. What's up?
Just a second. Let me bring you this. So, there you go.
Thank you. So in our company, we also do CDK and partially generate codes with agents. But now I'm thinking, if there is an agent generates the code, why we need CDK? Why not to generate CloudFormation template right away? Why we need CDK as an intermediary step?
What? So the question is, why are we having the agent generate CDK instead of CloudFormation? No, your point being that CDK is an abstraction on top of CloudFormation.
Yes.
It's easier for people. But why would I use CDK with an agent when it can just go use CloudFormation directly?
Exactly. It's more verbose, but it's declarative, so it may be easy to review.
It's a good question. I mean, I think it would be great to. I haven't done this myself. I haven't actually compared whether an agent is more effective with CDK or CloudFormation or Terraform for that matter, and that'd be a really good comparison because I think you're right. You probably want the one that the agent is the most reliable in generating. The reason I've chosen CDK is I still think that people are probably going to look at this. So one thing is that people are going to be able to read themselves. And so putting it in CDK just because I want to be able to understand it myself feels like the right decision. CDK also lets you do things like create custom resources, and I think there's going to be cases where you want to manage things that are not AWS resources, and I think that's easier to do in CDK than CloudFormation. Those are my motivations here for it. But I think it's a really good point, and I think we're going to need to keep evaluating that and figuring out what the best choice is. Okay, want to automate your deployments. Let's not do that for now. As I said, deployments, I think, or a CI/CD pipeline is super important. We would do that if we had more time, but I think we have 24 minutes. So I'm going to first pull up the link here. So this is the link that we've deployed it to. Let's go back to your browser. Is this your browser?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's load it. Let's see if it. Cool. So we've got our app. I think I need to sign up again here. We'll put Matt here. And not now. And you can see we've logged in. Now, as Sally mentioned before, this AI assistant is not super helpful. Like if I typed in something here like, I don't know, tell me a joke, it's going to give me a hard-coded answer back about he's a gaming marketplace assistant, blah, blah, blah. We probably want to have something more interesting here. So what I'm going to do is somewhere in here, I have a bunch more prompts. So I've got a prompt here which is going to add a Bedrock integration. I'm going to kick this one off. I'm not going to actually, I'll kick it off and then I'm going to explain a little bit about it. So how many of you guys have, I might have already asked this question, but how many people have written or have spent a lot of time writing prompts and struggling with how to get your agent to do something interesting? Yeah? It's hard sometimes, right? So I didn't write this prompt. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I can walk you through this prompt, but you can see it has a task. It says add AI functionality, checklist, blah, 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 blah. I didn't write a single line in here. What I actually did was I have another markdown file that I give to agents that tells it how to write good prompts. And what I actually did was I took a bunch of rough notes as I was chatting with Sally to prepare for this, and I just started writing notes about what we might want this to look like, and it was just random notes, and I passed that into an agent. I passed that into Kiro's chat and said, here's a bunch of notes. Can you turn this into a prompt that an agent would actually understand well? And it went and generated a prompt for me. And so this was a technique that I've been using this a lot. I've been all the time. I write things and then I ask the agent to write something better for the agent, and then I give it to the agent. And often the agent does things. I mean, how many people have tried this? You write something, you give it to an agent. It doesn't do what you want, and you ask the agent, "Why didn't you do what I want?" How many people have done that? Okay. How many people have instead asked, what would have been more clear in my original message to have made you do that? Okay. Some, but not as many. I think these are really like this idea of meta prompting I think is super important because you can, like if you ask it in one way, the agent is going to respond in one way. And if you ask in a different way, it's going to give you a different kind of advice. And so I use this all the time where I tell the agent, write this up in a way that is good for an agent. Tell me what was not clear about my prompt so that an agent would understand, or so that you would do it correctly the next time. And this doesn't always work, by the way. Sometimes I do that and it gives me all kinds of crazy ideas and you try them out and they don't work either. But I found this to be a more effective way to sort of iterate on your prompts. Okay, so checking in on here, you can see it is adding a bunch of stuff to Bedrock. You can see it's succeeded in some CDK builds. It's going. Maybe time for another question while we wait for the agent to do its thing. You don't have any questions?
Yeah.
A couple up here.
That gentleman wants first. There you go. Then you.
So I noticed that you're using lots of markdown, save, copy, pasting into the prompt. How far is this away from just, feeding those in and doing something like the spec-driven flow instead? Would there be an advantage to doing that?
Would there be an advantage to do this in a spec-driven flow instead of with the markdowns? That's a good question. I haven't tried that for this task.
Yeah, one thing that I can say not for this task, but for this approach, we also have some checklists. So this way, what we can do is, with the spec-driven development, what we have is requirements, acceptance criteria, and test and so on the infrastructure decisions. In here, we keep this in the more MVP level, but we still have acceptance criteria. Our acceptance criteria here are our checklists. We want to do some certain operations, and we want them to succeed. This is basically our version of the spec-driven development. But if we have fed this into Kiro to create tasks, it would have taken our checklist as the acceptance criteria in the requirements file itself.
Thank you. I have a very simple question. You have used Kiro for the IDE. Was there a choice, or can we use Cursor or something else? Was there an advantage using Kiro? I haven't used it, so I'm asking.
You could totally use, you could use anyone. I think all the principles we're talking about, I think apply equally, whether you're using Kiro or Cursor or Copilot or or something like the QCLI, which is all on the command line, which actually I use very often, just because I prefer using the command line. I go back and forth between that and Kiro. But the advantages, kind of to the earlier question, I think the spec-driven stuff is one of the differentiating things about Kiro, and it's true we're not actually using that here. Yeah.
My question is actually about the hot swap on the CDK deployment.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I feel like we've had to somewhat architect around is the combination of ECR and Lambda, where if you deploy a new container with the same tag, Lambda will not pick up that you've actually deployed a change if it's just tied to the tag. And I know it's not what this session's about, so feel free to punt if this doesn't work. Do you see people using that hot swap with Lambda ECR combination in order to make the deployment simpler instead of having to do an update code as opposed to just saying maybe the function changed, maybe the code changed, just deploy it again?
I don't know the answer to your question, but I would love to talk to you after the session to understand more, because this is, I do work closely with that team, and I'd like to understand better the challenges you're seeing on that. Yeah.
You have.
Okay, I would like to see both of you after the session.
You will talk to him as well.
Sounds important.
Yeah, we are lucky that we have Matt here to ask these questions, so he can consume them directly. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question. You mentioned you're using agents to generate CDK code. I found with Bedrock, with Anthropic models, ChatGPT models, that the CDK code in TypeScript is not very good. It's consistently, off from the newest changes in CDK. Is there a certain prompt or certain tips you have that have helped you to try to generate that CDK code that is working correctly?
Yeah, so you're saying that it's off because the model has some outdated version of the documentation and it's not up to date with the latest stuff. That is totally a challenge, and that's what you were talking about as well. In the prompt that we did with this whole, the prompt I returned from the MCP, there's a lot of snippets that I put in there. So I've already put in snippets that I know are correct, which you have to know that. If you're doing a one-off thing, that might be more of a challenge. Again, this was a tool I built because I'm doing this a lot for a lot of different use cases right now, and so it worked well for me to do it that approach. If it's behind on the documentation, actually, a question for you. Have you been using the AWS, there's an AWS documentation server that we launched I might have an answer to your question. Hold on just a minute.
Yeah.
We'll come back to more questions later. I want to show you, just because this deployment's finished, I want to You can see that it's deployed, and if we, hold on, let's go back to our app here. It should have deployed to the same place. If I refresh, I think I need to sign up again because there's not actually anything real here. Okay, so we come in here, and we're back at the AI assistant. Let's ask a different question, like what games do you recommend? In theory, this is now integrated with Bedrock, and you can see it's taking longer, so it's doing something. What are the chances that this works? Is it actually gonna, you talk to Bedrock, or is it gonna fail?
Come on, yes.
So you can see it's actually talked to Bedrock. It has told me that it can see that we're a fan of open world action adventure games, and they'd recommend checking out Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for the Nintendo Switch. Sully, have you done that one yet, or is that a?
I already played it.
You've already played it?
Yeah, I already finished it all. Yeah.
No. Not the best recommendation, but,
Yeah.
but we've now integrated with Bedrock. Yeah. Okay, I want to come back to your question, kind of. We just announced on Sunday a preview of what's called the AWS MCP server. How many people have heard of that? Read that announcement? Okay, a couple of people. So this, I'm going to come back to our MCP servers. I'm going to disable my MCP server, and I'm going to enable another one here that you see called AWS MCP. This is connecting to a remote MCP server that we just launched in preview on Sunday. And what this does, this consolidates two features that we had launched previously and then adds a third one. So the two things that it consolidated were integration with the AWS CLI. So it helps agents construct better commands to call the AWS CLI. Then there's the AWS documentation, which was remote. So the first one used to be local only. Now it's remote with this. The second one is this AWS knowledge set of tools, and this was connecting to AWS documentation and best practices and blogs and stuff like that. And so in answer to your question, if you're using that MCP server, I don't know if you were or not, it sounds like you weren't. So if you use that, I would love to know if you get different results, because it should be connecting live to documentation and should be able to search for CDK documentation and get better results. I'd love to hear if that actually happens, but that's what it should be doing. The third thing it's doing is we've added a new type of functionality called SOPs, so standard operating procedures, and these are so everything we've walked through so far in this talk are a bunch of prompts and step-by-step instructions for the model that we've created for this demo. We as a team have also recently, and that's what's packaged in this, have curated a bunch of these SOPs for y'all to use. So if we come over here, I'm going to create a new session. And I'm going to ask it, what SOPs are available in your MCP? I don't know if that's the best way to phrase that, but let's see what it says. It's going to, in theory, talk to this AWS retrieve agent SOPs. I need to trust it. So this is calling live the thing that we just launched on Sunday, and we're going to see a bunch of useful things that it can help the agent do. So you can see that we can create an EC2 instance profile setup. We can create an Amazon Aurora DB cluster with instances. We can do Lambda Gateway API, which creates a REST API gateway and connects it to something, to a Lambda, I guess, et cetera, et cetera. The one I was thinking about walking you through was creating CloudWatch alarms. No? Well, I'll give you guys a couple options. We can add CloudWatch alarms. We could create a budget. We could lock down our S3 bucket to make it secure. We could try to add an Aurora database, which I think is going to be the most complicated one, but we can try it. I don't know. They'll shout out. What sounds interesting? Alarms? Okay. Let's add alarms to our Lambda function. So it's thinking, in theory, it's going to, okay, so it found, what did it do here? Yep. AWS Lambda, so it is looking at the CDK infrastructure to understand what Lambda functions we have. I don't know why it's calling Lambda. Okay, it sees you have many Lambda functions. I notice there's a, what is it doing? Again, this is Vibe presenting, so don't know what we're doing. what is it doing? It is, so this is your Lambda function. This is the Bedrock Lambda function here. It is accepting edits. So if you look at the Bedrock stack, I think it is actually generating some errors. So I guess it's generating errors, throttles, and durations. It's building and deploying the changes. It's not following my deployment script, which is interesting. I mentioned that sometimes it doesn't do what you want. I built this, as I said, I built a deploy script so that it was deterministic, but that only works if the agent actually calls my script, which it decided not to do for some reason here. I think it'll work anyway, because I think this command will still.
I think it's not.
Oh, no, sorry, it's building. It's building. It didn't yet make a mistake. I think we're okay.
I think it also didn't read the deploy script yet, so that's why right now it's not touching. Maybe it's the easier option for it to just do the CDK deploy. So you can say, I have the deploy SH. Use that one.
Yeah. Well, no, it only built it. I was mistaken in what it was doing here. This npm run build is just building the changes, I think. And then, okay, so it's added 3 CloudWatch alarms to your Bedrock stack. So now we can deploy with let's say, following guidance in deployment.md. That's the actual skill that we want it to use, which tells it to go use the deploy script. And in theory, this is going to go and deploy stuff. While we wait for those changes, so you can see here, I don't know if you all have noticed this, but it's actually committing on every change that we do. These are instructions I've done. There's different opinions on whether this is good or not. I like telling it to commit every time I tell it to do a change. You can see I've even asked it here to include the prompt that I gave it so that I can later go and look back at this and see what things worked and what things didn't work. But the reason I like that is because the agent does something and then I might want to undo what it did, and Git feels like a very common way to do that. The only problem is that then I'm having incredible amounts of Git commits that you then have to go think, do you rebase them or whatever. But if we come over to, I was going to go back and look at our, oh man, you have this set up differently than I do.
What are you looking for?
I wanted to actually go and look at the changes. Add CloudWatch alarms, here it is. Okay, so I was just going to go and inspect the changes it did. You can see here it did add CloudWatch, and if we scroll down, it has added this CloudWatch alarm to our CDK. So in theory, that's going to go and work. It's deploying it, and we can go log in and check out if that's working when it's done. But I don't know.
More questions?
Yeah, more questions.
Yeah. First him, then you. Yeah, go ahead.
AWS MCP also supports the Terraform changes. Like most of our, like in my company, we use Terraform heavily rather than CDK.
Does AWS MCP support Terraform changes?
This is a unique use case that if I want to add some alarms or anything in the future, like budgeting and etc., will there be a possibility to have Terraform also be baked in, or any changes can be passed on?
It's a good question, and actually we can, if you want. I'm actually, in order to answer your question, I'm going to go back to, so we said here, let's add alarm to our Lambda functions. What you can see here is, here it called the MCP tool, and you can actually see the response. No, that's not right. Oh, this actually did this, wait a minute. This didn't use our tool at all.
I think it
okay.
loaded in the beginning.
I've demoed this MCP tool, and I did not demo the piece of it that I wanted to demo. So what this actually did, it turns out, again, vibe presenting. What this actually did was it called, if you recall at the beginning, I said that the MCP server had 3 things. There's the helping you call the CLI, there's the documentation, and there's the SOPs. What I was hoping this was going to do was actually grab the SOP for adding alarms. Which may or may not have specifically said use CDK. It might have actually said go call the CLI. It might have given more generic instructions which could then be applied to the CDK or Terraform or whatever the model decides. But what this actually ended up doing was it just went and looked at the CLI directly and just made up what alarms it was going to add. So this might not have been the best demo of what I wanted to demo. It still shows how the MCP server works. It still shows that it can go and make a bunch of cool calls. But let's see if we can prompt this to do something different. So we said locking down the S3 bucket was one, right? Let's just add that. I know it didn't get as many votes, but we'll just do it so you guys can see. So I'm also going to be a little bit more explicit just for the sake of this demo. And I'm going to say use your SOPs in the MCP tool to secure the S3 bucket of my static website. And let's see if this actually does something better. And then we'll come back to this other question over here while we wait for it. OK, so you can see here it's actually done AWS retrieve agent SOP, and it's actually pulled in the SOP secure S3 buckets here. And so here it's going to walk through a bunch of things. This provides a bunch of information about here are the parameters of things you're going to want to do. Here's some constraints. You must ask for all these parameters. Here's some steps that you're going to go through. It doesn't look like this one, for example, actually. No, this one is actually directing it to make CLI calls. So this might bypass the CDK goodness I was talking about here. I don't know if the model is going to recognize that this is a CDK and kind of veer from the SOP script, or if it's going to call this CLI anyway, but we'll see what that is. I presume if it doesn't say CDK and it figures it out, it would do the same thing for Terraform. Thank you. But this is me speculating, and and your mileage may vary. OK, so it's going through that. While we're waiting for that, I think we had another question over there.
Wait, sorry. What models are available? How the billing is happening? And is there an Amazon in-house model exist?
For Kiro?
For code writing.
OK.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch the question. Was the question which model we're using?
Yeah, in Kiro, what are the models available, and how are the pricing works, and so on.
And if Amazon in-house model exists at all? Of code writing.
I can take this if you want.
Yeah.
So from the models perspective, we have Sonnet 4.5, Sonnet 4, and we have the Opus 4.5, which is the latest one, I think. And we don't have an Amazon in-house model here. We have an Amazon model. We have, for example, Titan, which is specified in tech stuff and so on, you can use. But for coding, we don't have that. These models are powered by Amazon Bedrock. The infrastructure of the models come from Amazon itself. The pricing is, with Kiro's pricing, it depends on which model that you use. The most expensive model is the Opus, but you can use, for example, Haiku 4.5, which is the cheapest one. Or you can use the auto mode that will, for example, for a conversation, will pick the Haiku. For a hard task, it will pick Opus. We have a free tier of, let's say, like 50 credits. But according to what you do, according to your task, it does a different calculation. We have ways to see it within the IDE, so you can check out what operation would cost how much tokens out of it. I can say, for example, for authentication, you will have 5, but maybe it's something simple, maybe it's 2, or maybe it's complicated, or 7. But you can observe it as well. One thing about Kiro is it is independent, like you can keep it independent from your AWS billing as well. So in case you want to try out, download it. We will share the QR code later on as well with you. And just sign in with your Google account and just try out the free tier as well.
So technically, not to
you have option to not do it. You can also connect it as well. No, you don't need it. We don't have also bring your own key stuff as well. We have 1 minute left.
We have a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to have enough time to actually. So you can see here that we've actually it's gone through this SOP. It said that it's already pretty secured, which is pretty good. And it sounds like it's got a couple of small things that it would like me to do. No, it says no additional changes necessary. OK. Well, I guess we don't have to wait for deployment, which is good because we don't have time anyway. But I hope this was at least. We'll give you guys a teaser of what the AWS MCP server can do. And we're going to provide some links.
Yes.
I'll let you do that.
Let's showcase some. OK, I said we have one slide, but we have more than one. These are the resources, like for CDK, this is the CDK documentation. Kiro, for the folks who has not heard about it, they can download it from kiro.dev. And AWS MCP documentation is the last one. So you can check it out, get it to any agentic ID or any code companion that you have to work with. They're working great. besides that, like, we were afraid we would not make in time, but we actually talked a lot, so I'm really happy we are just in time. Thank you. Not this one, this is. So I want to thank you all for staying here, listening to us, and actually like being part of this experience with us.
And I hope you all learned something, and I'm curious to learn from y'all as well about the things you're struggling with.
So thank you, everyone.